For today's double indie game review, we are battling the darkness, one metaphorically and one quite literally, with Decarnation and Nocturnal. Decarnation is an adventure horror style game. We play as Gloria, a dancer in Paris right at the turn of the 90s, when her life begins to fall apart and she is put into a very dangerous and unusual circumstance. She is forced to confront things from inside her own inner universe in order to find the strength and courage in order to survive and grow as a person. For this one, this is 100% a linear and story-driven game. Each chapter will have you explore both the real world and then go into our own world in order to solve puzzles, find lots of weird things, and do minigames. So this is definitely a game that is 100% story-driven. There are no real fail-safes. You are also able to skip any of the puzzles and minigames if you so choose. From an aesthetic standpoint, Decarnation looks and sounds fantastic. While I am using a slideshow because this is again a very story-driven game and anything I show you will be spoiler, the animation and level of detail of the pixel art is quite fantastic. There's a lot of very subtle, like facial and kind of body language cues that is done with the pixel art that I really haven't seen before. And the game can certainly get very mature, especially in terms of the language and the situations. You're not going to be dealing with blood, guts, and gore too much here, but the horror is going to be coming from both existential and personal. And this is certainly not a game for kids, and it even says that quite literally at the start of it. Now, with that said, the story I really did enjoy. It was enough to keep me interested in playing, but there are a few issues here and there given what we have in terms of mechanics. The game starts off, I would say, painfully slow. The first 30 to 40 minutes is pretty much all exposition with one kind of gameplay section. It does begin to pick up as you get into like the first quarter, into the halfway point, but I can see this being one of those churn points for people looking for a very snappy or a game they can really get into. Speaking of which, as I said, the majority of the gameplay is built around these kinds of mini games and mini situations. And if you're hoping for a kind of survival horror or adventure horror game with a lot more teeth to it in terms of what you're going to be doing, then I can also see you not enjoying this one as well. But this is certainly a great game for someone looking for a very interesting and very different story. The aesthetics and, again, what we're learning about Gloria and the story were enough to keep me invested all the way through to the end, and for someone like me, that is certainly saying something. My only real suggestion would be maybe a way to move faster when you're not dealing with like puzzles or situations where you need to be slow, as there's a lot of kind of just like dead time walking throughout some of the larger environments in the game. So if you are looking for a mature story with some very gorgeous and disturbing visual design, I highly recommend Decarnation. Now, if you're looking for something where you're actually literally battling the darkness, well, let's go talk about Nocturnal. But first, we're going to take a quick break, and if you're interested in my thoughts on design, then be sure to check out my game design books. For entry-level students, we have 20 Essential Games to Study, and then the Game Design Deep Dive series that takes an extensive look at different genres, with more coming soon. Nocturnal is an action-adventure game where we are returning to our island home that has been taken over by the mysterious mist, which I believe could be the second cousin of the darkness from Alan Wake. With our sister gone missing, half the people wanting to kill us because we're a traitor, the other half wanting to kill us because they're possessed by the mist, it's going to be up to us to use the literal power of fire in order to save the day. While the game is called Nocturnal, our major game mechanic here is using fire in order to solve puzzles and fight off enemies. Once you are kind of set on fire, you're able to deliver additional damage to normal enemies and hurt the mist kind of possessed ones. While you're on fire, you can also heal yourself at the cost of your fire, and you can eventually unlock a special move that uses it as well. There's a kind of quasi-escort mission going on in terms of the puzzle solving, as you'll need to ferry fire from one light-bearing source to another in order to activate switches, defend yourself against the mist, and find secrets and bonus things as well. There is a basic leveling system as you'll use experience to unlock passives like more health, more fire duration, and so on. All in all, this is a game that is certainly on the short and sweet side. We managed to beat it in about, I would say maybe like 90 minutes to 100 minutes here and there. In terms of difficulty, I would say it is on the, moderate to maybe moderate challenging side. This is by no means a Souls-like or a kind of Soul and Sanctuary-esque game. As long as you're good at dodging and lighting stuff on fire, you should be good enough at it. I really do like the aesthetics of this one as well. Some of these shading, especially as you're going into the larger like outdoor environments, look phenomenal. And the game almost gives off like a Prince of Persia kind of look to it. In terms of issues with this one, I would say the only thing that I didn't like is that it does feel maybe a tad long given the mechanics and systems in it. The only real kind of new gameplay element that gets introduced is getting a throwing knife that allows you to do long-range fire lighting, and it would have been nice to see maybe some different puzzle types or a little bit more enemy variety. All in all, Nocturnal probably isn't going to set the world on fire, no pun intended, with its design. But it's a very solid game, and like some of the other examples we've played lately, it knows what it wants to be, and it sticks that landing all the way to the conclusion. And I do hope that we get to see some more in terms of this kind of like fire-based puzzle solving in the future. So if you are looking for a new action-adventure game to play, one that is not going to be too hard and not too long, I would highly recommend playing Nocturnal. So with that said, we're going to wrap things up for these reviews. I'd like to thank the developers of both for providing press keys to check them out. Let me tell you your games for a future video and stream. Please get in touch. I'll include a full playthrough of my run of Nocturnal on the second Game Wisdom channel, so be sure to check that out over there. Do all the YouTubing stuff people tell you to do and visit our Discord and Patreon, and come back for daily discussions on game design here and on Game Wisdom, where some of the art and science of games.